In a world full of distractions, there is one big question on every dog owner's lips.
How do I become more than just the person holding the other end of the leash?
We all get dogs with a dream in mind, a vision of the future. And if right now your everyday reality isn't quite that picture you had in mind, you are in the right place.
It really doesn't have to be this way.
You absolutely can and will be more to your dog than just the person who gets in between them and the world.
The key is you need to be more sexy.
More sexy than the neighbourhood cat.
More sexy than the jogger in the park.
More sexy than that half-eaten hamburger they just found on the floor.
And yes, even more sexy than the dog across the road.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Lauren.
Together we're Absolute Dogs.
And you're listening to the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast.
And welcome to the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast, the podcast that teaches you how to be the very best dog owner your dog could ever wish for, and that includes feeding your dog.
Oh my goodness, we have questions, Tom. I have a whole list of questions, not from you three. No, you three can just settle down. I get you think it's food time. You hear our excitement in food. Tom and I like food too. So we've got many questions. I'm going to pick a couple. Mm-hmm. So we've got some ditch the bowl troubleshooting questions.
Cool.
These are from our real life owners. This is from the lovely Rose. And Rose says, how do I transition to ditch the bowl? Can I just go cold turkey? Haha, turkey. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Can I just go cold turkey?
Good question. Okay, so I think first things to say is that it totally depends on what your dog is currently doing. So are they in? It's one thing to be fed in a bowl, but it's an entirely different thing to be fed in a bowl at the same time every day. And if you've got a dog that is fed from a bowl at the same times every day, then what we've got to be aware of is that their entire body and digestive system is geared towards those times a day, because bodies are things of efficiency, right? They don't waste time, they don't waste processes, and so what we would say is definitely today's the day to ditch the bowl. Don't feed your dog in a bowl from now on, but what you might want to do is time your sessions and your delivery of their food around those times to start with, incorporating other times between those, what we can call meal times for the time being, and then move towards kind of a true ditch the bowl, every day's a new day. Because then what you're doing is you're not going to get your dog producing loads of stomach acid at the wrong time and then feeling a little bit like, oh my goodness, I'm hungry and I feel sick. We've all had that, haven't we? And instead what we're doing is we're kind of working within what they expect.
So our next question, I think this is fantastic, and I'm going to start on this one because I love this question. I'm going to be traveling and my dog is going to be staying somewhere else. I can't expect them to upkeep a ditch the bowl routine. So is it even worth doing it? Here's the great thing. There is no ditch the bowl routine. It's as relaxed as he looks right now. I think we should have a look at that, because it's as relaxed as a dog rolling on his back, like he's just super chill and life is good. For me, the cool thing is that I say roughly this amount. Yeah. I say you can scatter it, you can feed it on a walk, put some in your pocket. I'll even give you a treat bag to take away with you. You can put it in a bone. Here are some bones that they can have from the freezer. These are the things you can do. And if I just don't give them a bowl and I say these are all the things you can do, guess what? That's what they do. The other option is actually you just give someone 8 bones frozen with your dog's food in it for the day, whether that be a filled bone, a stuffed Kong, a marrow bone. You can give so many different options. So for me, it's almost a dilemma of words there. I can't expect them to upkeep a ditch the bowl routine. There is no routine, and a ditch the bowl's even easier than anything else, because if anything, it keeps that dog occupied whilst they're away on their holidays, and it's definitely worth doing it. Would you add anything to that, Tom?
No, not really, other than, really simple things like coming in from the garden, give them, a little scatter of food. Going out to the garden, give them a little scatter of food. You ask them to go into their crate, they go into their crate, give them a little scatter of food, and all of a sudden, you're kind of heading towards the daily food allowance, and these are things that are going to make the carer's life easier, and they're kind of doing it anyway. We're not really asking them to do any extra, so yeah. Absolutely. Brilliant
question, and I'm hoping we've got you. Okay, it's all up for you. what if my dog is a resource guarder and I want to ditch the bowl? Because for me, I actually see this as a massive advantage when you've got a resource guarder actually. And actually so many dogs are a bit resourcey and it's not an unnatural thing. It's very much a normal dog thing.
So one thing that will really challenge a dog that struggles with resource guarding and make it really challenging for them not to go into this state of resource guarding is actually being still. So stillness often creates resource guarding in dogs that struggle with that. And so you imagine standing over a bowl and having a meal and being stood in stillness with the bowl in front of you. There are some dogs that I've worked with actually where they're they've got such a struggle with resource guarding when they come to see me that actually if there's a bowl of food in front of them and they're still, they can't eat because they can't disengage from guarding to actually eat the food. What we've got to realise is with resource guarding, it's not about possession and keeping and they want that food forever. It's actually that they can't disengage from what they're doing right now, and in turn they can't even enjoy the thing that supposedly they're wanting to possess. And so the key to really supporting, helping them and managing them is actually to keep them moving. And when in doubt, get them moving. You can't do that when you're sticking a bowl of food in front of them, right? So absolutely ditch the bowl is really going to help. Also, the reason why they're resource guarding is because they're struggling with certain skills. They lack certain skills that are leading them to resource guard. The skill of optimism, right? The skill of disengagement, having an empty bucket, thinking in arousal. All of these skills we can actually teach them if we ditch the bowl and play games with them. So if anything, it's probably especially important for those dogs, right? And if there's such a severe, if the picture of resource guarding looks so severe that you're questioning what you should do next, probably means you need help, right? It probably means you need direction and you need support and you need a plan of action from maybe somebody who's done that before. And that's totally fine as well to be asking yourself that question. It's great that you want to, do the right thing for your dog.
And I think that our next two questions are both fantastic questions. I'm going to start with, ditch the bowl on a puppy, when do I start? You start yesterday. Yeah. Literally, yesterday is the time. You start immediately, you start early, you get on with it, and you don't get too overthinky about it, actually. It's just something you do from day one. It's really fun, and it's something you do from day one. And no, your dog will not expect to eat from a bowl. In fact, they will wonder why on earth they are eating from a bowl. So it's definitely a cool thing. So that's an easy one to answer. Next one is, what actually are some of your favourite sort of positives from ditch the bowl? So what are our favourite sort of easy wins? And I'm going to say, number one, relationship. Like, ditch the bowl gives relationship. So it's one of the foodie questions that how do you benefit? It's relationship. It's the fact that your dog and you have a conversation and your dog has a way to interact with you and you have a way to interact with your dog, and your dog understands that by going through you that reinforcement happens, or you are like proximity and power therefore within your reinforcement schedules. For me, it's a powerful place to be. Over to you.
Mine would be that it's totally appropriate in any situation. So let's say all you've got to train your dog and reward your dog with is a tennis ball. Well, how do we reward them for calmness in the cafe, right? It gets a little bit challenging. How do we reward them for not reacting to the other dog that has just run up to you on a walk? Well, the only option you've got is to throw it. Now, if you throw that ball in that context, do you think the other dog's going to want to get involved as well? Do you think that's potentially going to cause a conflict? Absolutely. When we ditch the bowl and we grow food as this amazing experience that we get to reward our dogs with, actually we might gently pass it to their mouth. We might calmly place it on the floor and cage it like a mouse and then slowly deliver it. We might throw it up in the air and get them catching it in a really excited way. We might bowl it so they chase it. The point is there's always an option and you're not limited by the thing that you are using to reward your dog.
We'll do a couple more of our favourite reasons for ditch the bowl and then we'll move on to a last question. One more for me with ditch the bowl is I think my dogs have a way better life. I think they're enriched in ways that some dogs I feel sad for, and I genuinely mean that. I adore watching dogs earn and learn and interact. And I also think, my late dog Poppy, she was almost 17. She was just shy of her 17th birthday. She died in the September and she'd have been 17 in the November. And she never had to stand over a bowl and shake and lose her legs, and because she was always hunting food out. She loved it if we had training days in the grass, because she would run out of the house afterwards. She'd seen all the cars there all day and she'd be like, oh, they're like one of those seagulls that knew that there were like chips around. She'd literally run, and she kind of would skip at that age because she was a bit lame in the back end in the sense she was just old. And she'd get out there and she'd be so happy because she'd use it as her scatter ground. And someone said to me once, does she have any allergies? I'm like, no, none of our dogs have any allergies. They're just so used to so much from day one. We just don't have allergies. They just do not have them. And so for me, watching a dog have the quality of life that Ditch the Bowl creates, a bit like enrichment in young children and elderly people, they get it throughout their life. They get this throughout their life. It's your engagement with your dog and your experience that you deliver on a day-to-day basis. Now that is powerful.
Yeah, final one on that would be, it's almost like a vocabulary that you've got to communicate to your dog with. And yeah, I had a situation this morning where I had to pop somewhere to have a quick meeting, and I had a bet and casino in the back of the truck, and I was in a field, and I was like, oh, hop them out and we can play some games and have a bit of a conversation. And in the end, the people arrived that I was having the meeting with, they actually arrived on a big like digger type thing, like just a massive bit of machinery. They were like, Casino and Bet looked at it. I was like, oh yeah, that's totally cool. Here's, a bit of your daily food allowance. And then I was having the conversation with the people that I was meeting, and I then got to say to Bet and Casino, right, the conversation you two are having now is occupy yourselves sniffing in the grass. So we did a scatter feed. And I'm like, I can be very clear about, right, now this is the topic of conversation. Now maybe, after we finish the meeting, we have a walk around the field, and the topic of conversation then is proximity, and the food is going to be delivered in my proximity. You can't achieve that with a tennis ball or a tug toy. There's really only one topic of conversation you can have with those, right? And instead, when we think about ditching the bowl, you can have so many different conversations and look like a real expert of your dog, because your dogs are there and they're around and they're part of the action, but they're maybe having a different conversation to what everybody else is having in the environment.
Okay, our last question, there are so many more, but this is our last question for now. Our last question is, my dog has allergies or a restricted diet. Is Ditch the Bowl still for me? Yes, 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 and yes.
Super, even more important.
For me, it's just another way of using that food. So if your dog does have a restricted diet, what stops you using that food for Ditch the Bowl? Like whether you're going to rehydrate that and put it back into a Kong or a bone or something else, or whether you're going to feed that by hand, why not still Ditch the Bowl? It doesn't mean that you need to put their restricted diet in a bowl. So for me, they work hand in hand. Ditch the bowl. And then from Tom?
The other thing that I'd add is, even if your dog is on like one of those hydrolyzed protein kibble diets that mean that literally they can just have that hydrolyzed protein kibble, then you've got that you need to ditch the bowl, because that kibble needs to become experiences, because it's not necessarily the tastiest thing. But also what you might do is chuck a handful of kibble in a bowl, chuck some water in there, let it get all mushy, stick it in an empty bone or a Kong and stick it in the freezer. You absolutely need to ditch the bowl, because you've only got that to work with. You can't necessarily go up in value. So it's instead about saying, right, if the taste is staying the same, how can I up the value in the form of experience? And that's where Ditch the Bowl comes in.
So that was this episode of the Sexier and a Squirrel podcast. Literally insanely action-packed with food and understanding food and what we do with food and all of the things that we can think about answering about food. Literally, I know there is so much more that we can dive in here on. In fact, we've created a whole food badge dedicated to this topic in itself, right?
And what that will cover is really what is the zero to hero of food and mastering a dog who gets excited about working with food. And that might involve a little bit of your baking skills, right? As well. So it's, we've got there's so much that you have control of. There's so much that you can get excited about. And it really doesn't just stop at that. It's not like, I learn this crazy cool recipe that my dog absolutely loves. That's bigger than that. That is your dog walking nicely on a lead. That is your dog coming back when called. That is you transforming your dog's reactivity. This is not just food, this is life.
This is your dog ownership dream. Remember to share it, to like it, to love it, to make sure the whole world hears about this. And remember,
stay sexy!
Stop right there, Game Changer. We have something very exciting to tell you about if you struggle with stressful walks right now.
So pulling your dog, yanking your arm out of its socket, just basically it's painful, right?
Now, it's a struggle that you want to transform. You want to go from pulling on lead like a train to loose leash walking prince or princess, and we've got a solution for you.
It is just £27. It's a mini course that literally is going to be your zero to hero of loose leash walking.
Day by day, we're going to be showing you the games and skills and strategies that you are going to need to implement to transform your dog's leash behavior in the next 2 weeks.
This is a complete package. You get to keep it for life. Yes, for life. And it's just £27 to you.
Access it anywhere, keep it for life, no equipment required, and all you've got to do is go to absolutedogs.me/stop pulling. And yes, it is just £27, Game Changers.